Hello and welcome to the Last Word on Spurs. We are, of course, your multi-award winning Tottenham Hotspur podcast. Spurs are revving up to go as we are looking to announce not one but two transfers back to back during this January transfer window. And as always, we're joined by a top tier panel. Musician Jar Wobble is back on the screen, as is Jonathan Hammy. Welcome back to the show. Football Inc.'s very own, Spurs Fire's very own, and Ash is back from Spurs Kings TV as we take you through what's happened in the last 24 hours of Tottenham Hotspur during this January transfer window. For all the viewers out there, if you can for us, hit the like button, subscribe button, hype the show. That would be greatly appreciated. Tottenham are set to get their January transfer window underway with the arrivals of Conor Gallagher, who is at this moment in time, in terms of recording, already undergoing his medical. And let's hope those gates are locked firmly tight at Hotspur Way. Those pillows are fluffed. He ain't going nowhere. And alongside him, Tottenham are also set to announce the signing of the Brazilian fullback Sousa in what's going to be a double deal. We understand Spurs are set to probably announce on Wednesday as things stand. Formalities taking place. One key thing to note, Tottenham will not be able to add neither Conor Gallagher or Sousa to their Champions League squad for the Champions League matches against Borussia Dortmund and Eintracht Frankfurt. But providing Tottenham do make it through to the playoff round, they will be able to do so. Let's bring in our wonderful guest to see the mood around Spurs right now. This could be an hour in itself. We'll try our best. Let's start with Johnny. Johnny, it's been a while since we've had you back on here, mate. How are you? I know it's not been deliberate. Things have got in the way, but you'll be with us throughout this window. You well?
Listen, you said the engines have started. Vroom, vroom. Listen. As far as I'm concerned, we've just put a little bit of fuel in the tank, right, to get this vroom, vroom and get racing on down the road. I just need a couple more passengers in my car before I get down the road and start getting carried away with myself and start speeding down the highway. Because, listen, Conor Gallagher is a great way to start. I feel like I've been talking about him for like 2 years now, definitely for the last 18 months, last few windows. It's a bit of a surprise, a bit of a ridiculous controversy from Chelsea fans. What's he doing going to Spurs? It's nonsense. You forced him out of the club. Your owners, your ridiculous owners, forced him out of the club for PSR and FFP, and he's coming home. He's coming home to play for Spurs, and get used to it. For me, I think it's a great signing. It's a great place to start, and he offers us. For me, he offers us everything that we are missing. Some people say he's what we've got already, but just a bit of an upgrade. I think he's more than that. I think he's a leader, as we saw under Pochettino, 51 out of 52 games for Poch. Many of those, or most of those, as captain. Some would say Pochettino's first signing in advance for the summer window. We shall see. We shall see. But look, there's the positive camp and there's the negative camp, and I prefer to jump into the positive camp. And I'm very happy with it. And as for Sousa, an exciting left back, a lot to prove, and I'd be amazed if he was oven ready. But listen, you never know. But look, we're looking for positivity amongst the gloom and doom that we've been swimming in for the last God knows how many months, years, by one night in Bilbao. So let's take the positivity and move forward and enjoy the moment. It might only last for a few minutes, so let's enjoy it.
I think the fact you've gone so positive with swimming, I was going to say trying to survive amongst the tide in the ocean, to be fair.
I've got my rubber ring on.
Yeah. I feel like with a few more of them, it could always be, feisty waters with Tottenham. One man that we'd like to bring back onto the show. Listen, we've gone after the watershed, so God knows what's coming, but normally it's laughter and joy and fun, and sometimes tears of joy, as many have seen me on this show. Musician Jar Wobble is back in the house. How are we going to limit Jar to certain characters and what he's going to say, given he's not been back here for about a month or so? Jar, how are you, mate? Firstly, lovely to have you back.
Well, I'm very happy to be back with these two esteemed guests. They're great guys to do it with, Ash and Johnny. And I'm ashamed of my behaviour and my language in the past year, Ricky, to be quite frank. I've let myself down. I think I've let Spurs down, the way I've behaved. I won't swear. Never fucking again. Oh, shit. No, I'm pathetically happy with the Conor Gallagher signing. We were mooted to sign him a couple of years ago, and I wasn't so, a year, maybe less, and I wasn't so excited because I felt we didn't need a number 8, particularly at that point. Now we really need, it's not just a question of as Johnny said, he's a leader, he gets stuck in, he's all action, and he can really play a bit, So the question in football always, if you're recruiting players, is he better than what you've got? Yes. He's better than what we've got in that driving forward from midfield. We saw what they can do when they take the ball by the horns, probably themselves in that second half against Villa during the season for us, and what he did with Fulham, winning the ball up near the halfway line rather than around the D, really getting stuck in, getting on the front foot, pressuring teams. And so we're going to have that with a bit of experience, because Archie Gray's not quite, he's not ready yet, is he? He probably will be a good player. I'm not convinced he will play at the top level. Who knows? You can never tell. But he's obviously a good lad, and doesn't hide from the ball. But you can't be dependent on him to start your games. You just can't at this point. It's too serious. The stakes are too high.
So apparently, and this might upset you, I don't know how they'll take this, but Thomas Frank was the man that apparently made that personal call, we're hearing, to Conor Gallagher to convince him to come to Tottenham. And the player apparently was keen on a move to Aston Villa, but after speaking to Gallagher and convincing the move was right, despite the team struggles, Spurs have convinced him to sign. And of course, in the process, we have seen that competition off from Aston Villa. But it has been a transfer, John, as you mentioned in your intro, which has been a while in the making. And obviously for Tottenham, Gallagher ticks a number of boxes they're looking for right now. Of course, there's the homegrown element to it. It's a player that, to be fair, touch wood, has kept fairly fit during his career. Obviously at the age of just turning 26 next month, there's a feeling that he's not even reached his peak yet. And he's a player that I think, again, you mentioned, Johnny, this is a player that was courted several times under Mauricio Pochettino's time, where obviously he was in love with him at Chelsea. And apparently Postecoglou called him up to 8 times with his representatives in the last couple of seasons. So it's a player that Tottenham have been very, very keen to sign. What are the pros you think of bringing Conor Gallagher to the club, if you feel you need to explain them? Because I have been quite surprised by some of the negative reaction out there from Spurs fans about Gallagher's signing. This is a guy that, again, homegrown, played for the likes of Atletico Madrid, played for Chelsea, played in the Champions League, willing worker, great, I would say, technical ability as well, scores goals. Johnny, your thoughts, and are you surprised by some of the backlash there's been on Gallagher?
Yeah, I've got to be honest, I am. I'm not quite sure what they want. Our midfield has been poor. It's been porous. We don't have leaders. I feel like half the time that Paulinho, who's our loan signing, has been our lone leader. A guy who leads from the front, a guy who plays with passion, as could be seen, especially in the second half against Villa on the weekend there, and against Bournemouth in that game, trying to get us back into that one. I think to have another person like him, leader, it's not all about flair and creativity. Every team needs a workhorse. Every team has a Fernandez, a Caicedo, someone who does the donkey work. But I think, maybe that's the wrong word I've used, donkey work, because people will say, well, he is a donkey. But I believe he's a good player, and he offers us what we're missing. Well, we need a mental monster. We need a guy who's, committed to every tackle. We don't have leaders. There's a reason why Mauricio Pochettino made him the captain. When you look at that squad and he chose him, I think that says it all. Now, I don't think there'd be any question if Mauricio Pochettino was back at this club and he made Conor Gallagher the captain. I don't think there would be any question. So I don't think we should really be questioning the signing. I could understand it if he was the only signing we're going to make. I get it, okay? But, you know, let's wait and see where the window goes before we start, you know, micro-analysing every aspect of the guy. He doesn't make enough progressive passes. You know, I've seen that one. But, you know, I like the version of him that we saw at Crystal Palace whilst on loan, when he was almost playing as a 10, when he was keeping Eze out of the team. I really like that player. But obviously, when he came back to Chelsea, he was more or less playing as a deep-lying 6. I think he's more of an 8. Listen, he's box to box. What version we're going to get from him, I'm not 100% sure. But he has that flexibility in his skill set. And as you rightly said, he's 25 coming up, 26, I think, next month. I'm not quite sure what people want. What I would say, though, is this business about Thomas Frank making the call and he loved the story. For me, Jackanory. Look, Aston Villa have got serious issues with UEFA, with FFP and PSR. And they're walking a tightrope with UEFA right now. And I think you'll notice that they need the money in. And so they've sold Marlon, looks like he's going to go to to Roma. And lo and behold, coming the other way to fill in that striker spot on a loan with an option is going to be Tammy Abraham. Now, what that does is it gives them the flexibility to get the money in to meet their FFP and the PSR, at the same time keeping a strike force intact to back up Ollie Watkins with Tammy, who I quite like. And I think it ticks all their boxes. And I think that's why the Aston Villa couldn't really, when push came to shove, couldn't really compete on a financial basis to meet the demands of the fee that Atletico Madrid were playing for. That's not to say he didn't want to come to us. I'm just putting some realism on it, the way I see it, as far as Aston Villa's situation there. Aston Villa fans can say what they want. He's gone to a lesser club. As it stands, yes, Aston Villa have taken over our position as a top 6 team. We've relinquished that position for now. It's whether or not it's a temporary hold they've got over that, or it's going to be there for the next few years. I'm hoping it's temporary.
Fingers crossed. I hope you are right. Jar, bringing you back in. We mentioned there, I think you said it in your intro, Jar, as well, that Postecoglou at the time was seeing Gallagher as that kind of perfect 8 in his system. He was so keen to bring him to the football club. And of course, he's going to fill that gap left by Rodrigo Bentancur, who has been confirmed now that he will be out for what looks like probably around 3 months of surgery. That's been confirmed by Tottenham. And quite interesting as well on this, Jar, Daniel Levy apparently turned down the chance on Conor Gallagher back in 23 and 24. Tottenham explored the move as a possible deal to buy in 2023, but decided to purchase James Maddison at the time from Leicester instead. Of course, Gallagher ended up going to Atletico Madrid. And as things stands at the moment, he's expected to sign a 5.5-year contract with Spurs and will make his debut in, of course, Saturday's massive league fixture at home to West Ham United. Jar, is that the perfect fixture for Conor Gallagher to make his Spurs debut? And what will he bring to a team that it feels at times bereft of confidence when you watch us play, especially in that first half against Aston Villa?
Well, it's a good sign for us for him to make his debut, because I think we might have been in trouble without him on Saturday. They've won a game, albeit it's just the FA Cup, but they've won a game, and they looked well happy, West Ham. You know, they've got some new players in as well, and I think they would be going there on Saturday fancying the job a little bit to our place. So having him in the team really gives us a raise, gives us a fillip, you know. So I think I'm very happy we got him. What you're saying there about Daniel Levy all those years ago, last couple of years, the problem is it was always a case of, you know, well, we're just going to get we're always 2 or 3 or 4 players short of a top team. It was the same with Redknapp. It was the same with Postecoglou. You know, we're always short. It was the same with Poch. and it reached an nadir, of course, after we reached the Champions League final. We just non-existent recruitment. It was incredible, So right now I'm very happy for him to be coming in. As Ash has said as well, I think he's obviously a very good pro. He's a pro. He's got experience beyond his years and will be a great help to the likes of Archie Gray. So I think it's really good. But we need more. We need more. We need at least another 2 or 3 signings in this window to have a chance, realistically, of heading to the top 6 and maybe progressing into the knockout stages of the Champions League. But of course they're cut tied anyway. All the players we get in now, so that's going to be a big ask. Especially if I think there could well be a playoff. Are we going to be? Who are we going to play? So that's going to be difficult. But at least this way, whoever plays can be reasonably fresh for those games. You hope, if they bring in enough players. But I do think they're making the right noises. As Ash said, they've got this deal done quickly by their standards, very fast. So they've got 2 under their belt. I think they might have moved even quicker, but the market does move at its own pace anyway with January. It doesn't seem possible generally to go in and get the deal done unless you're one of the biggest clubs. I think there tends to be a lot of I's to dot and T's to cross and all that stuff. But I would hoping we'll get at least another 2 or 3 players in.
Yeah, I listen, Jar. I would love to share that optimism. I think the problem they've got as well is even from like a registration perspective, that's where I think Spurs are going to really struggle to bring in that number of players because they obviously have to move players out and bring players in. I mean, I look at this window now. Obviously, when you think about Gallagher, Sousa, if they can get one more really top draw player, what I mean by that is someone that's going to come in and directly impact the first team, I think that would probably surpass what I was expecting this window. I really would, because I just think, at this point, what will be the 13th of January, I'll be honest, I was quite concerned as to where it was going. And I still feel, because of the nature of Spurs now, no longer in the FA Cup, no longer in the League Cup, obviously, of course, Champions League going to be difficult, really, when you think about, even when we do progress and we do reach a playoff, whoever we're going to face, and I mean this with all due respect to us, given our form in general this season, I do think any competent side over the course of 2 legs, I think we're going to struggle with, based on the squad we've got available, based on what we've seen so far with Tottenham. So I guess we'll have to wait and see on that. But Johnny, I'm really keen to get your take on this. We're going to come on to Akliouche shortly, because I know that's a player Spurs are reportedly reigniting their interest in. Just on this point, if I come over to you, John, with regards to the talk around Parategy at the moment, he's going to move on, as we know, at the end of the window as things stand, Johnny. And also, to top that all off, reports are current in the last 24 hours that if he had it his way, and I think we all know this anyway, Frank's not his man. He would have liked to bring in Igor Tudor, make of that what you will, because I think that's, again, a match that would have been quite divisive, would have split opinion. So are you concerned by how deals are being actively done during this window, or do you feel this, again, Conor Gallagher feels like an opportunity rather than a pre-planned deal? Do you care? Does it matter? How do you feel in terms of the way the rest of the window will shape up when Jar says there for him, he'd love to see a couple more genuine quality players come through the door?
I'm more concerned. Listen, I know Fabio will do everything he can in this window to go out with a bang. And that's no reference to his new girlfriend who he's running off to Italy with. He's obviously more in love with what she's going to offer him in sunny Florence than what Johan Lang and Vinay can offer him in damp, squibby London. But I think the big concern is, where do we go from here? I have absolutely zero confidence in Johan Lang moving forward as the leader of our recruitment. There's a reason why he was under 21 demoted at Aston Villa. There was reason why when this sort of joint partnership was put together, that he would focus on the kids, and Fabio would concentrate on the big stuff, the main stuff. I would say the first team players. So I'm seriously concerned what happens after February the 2nd. For me, unless you're going to bring in a Paul Mitchell or a Campos or someone like that, this club is going to be in serious trouble. This is my number one thing that I feel like we have to address once this window closes. But for now, I think Fabio will do what he's got to do. I think he will deliver another signing. I think Ben Davies is going to end up on his way out, whether it's to Nice. My concern is, with no Ben Davies, what happens to the book club? That's a big concern to me, because without him, book reading and reading in general will go down the Swanee Spurs. Will they be able to read the iPad that Thomas Frank likes to get out now and again and show the face? Look, it's a concern. I think we're okay for this window. I think we will be fine for this window. My concern is where we go from here. Johan Lang, for me, is like staring at magnolia wallpaper for hours on end. He just does not do it for me. If I'm doing him a disservice, then I apologise. But for me, no way.
Yeah, just on where we are right now, I do want to come. I'm going to come to Ash just in a second on Akliouche, but I just want to ask you, Jar. We've not had a chance to have you back on this show for a while. One of the main reasons why it appears that Fabio Paratici is now looking to go to sunnier seas in terms of Italy is because the clear view of the Spurs hierarchy right now is to stick with Thomas Frank, and they are pretty much at this moment in time strong on that position. We said this in the earlier part of the week that unfortunately statistically Thomas Frank is Tottenham's worst manager in the last 20 years. If you go off points per game and you look back at the managers Tottenham have had, Jar, is there any way in your mind, and being a Spurs fan for the many years that you've been, can you in your mind think about a time that a manager's had this amount of pressure, this amount of stick from home supporters, away supporters, and managed to turn it around? Can you see any way that Frank can turn the feeling around on him where a lot of fans could feel he would be the right man in the future?
It only takes a couple of wins and you start to get people back on side. Even at this stage, Jar, do you think that? Even at this stage, do you really believe that? It's possible. You have to say it's possible. I know his record's marginally worse than what we've sometimes had in the past, but there is a counter argument. These are the same players that finished 17th last year, so we knew there were issues with those players.
Yep.
So that was a fact. I do think that I must admit, what I think sort of immaterial really, or any of us think, if you don't show up in London derbies against Chelsea and West Ham, and you don't show up against Aston Villa in the first half, and it's going to go against you. I don't think I've ever known such hatred and blind toxicity against one of our managers. That surprised me. Such a sort of fairly ineffectual fella. The level of hatred towards him, it reminds me of the lack of respect. He's like a supply teacher. I don't know if everyone remembers supply teachers. They came in. I never saw a supply teacher get respect. They used to get hammered by the kids, And he looks to have shrunk slightly to me. He looks seriously, he just looks slightly smaller than he did. His lovely hair's not as glossy.
He used to come in high heels. He's wearing flats now, Joe.
I could imagine, but it's what I think Vinay has a track record. This Vinay guy, he's stuck with Arteta at Arsenal, and I think he'll be. He's obviously a very corporate individual, as I guess they have to be nowadays because they're running a corporate company, and he will think they will be hoping they can ride out the storm, and they'll be thinking if it does happen in football. Remember Alice Ferguson? He was hated. He was on the verge of that, of getting. He was just literally on the cliff edge, and turned it around. It was 4 years. Now you're not going to get 4 years now. So if Thomas Frank's the one Tottenham manager I'd love to have a chat with, and just say to him, look, you just can't let the team not turn up in these big. Can't you see that? And I think they look sort of petrified, and I heard a good comment from somebody or other on one of the podcasts or something on how it was, I tell you who it was Alan Pardew and on TalkSport, and he said they were so obsessed with getting back in shape
Yep.
In that first half that they didn't pick up the runners, they didn't pick up the players going in between the lines. And of course, come the second half, you've got no option but to attack. So you start to fight. You have to play with a bit of freedom. You don't have much to lose, and suddenly you start to get somewhere. Whereas we've been making these teams. We made Villa look a lot better than they are probably. They shouldn't be able to waltz through our defence the way they did. So I would like him to stay because you can't just keep changing managers. But to get back to the question, yeah, I guess maybe that's one of the reasons Paratici's left. There's a lot of, because when they've gone a bit quiet on the communications front, your imagination can come into play and you can start projecting a lot of, stuff onto it that he doesn't like Frank and this, that and the other. And that could possibly be the case. The fact of the matter is, what other top club has two joint directors of football? And I guess at some point one of them had to go, and it looks like it's Langer. Langer's, I guess, maybe more championing the cause of the younger players, possibly,
Yep.
But it looks like if there's a battle to be won, he's kind of won it,
Yep.
and then I will stick with him. But having said everything about being patient, if we lose against West Ham, it doesn't matter how patient Vinay wants to get. He won't have seen rage like that at Arsenal with Arteta. It will. At that point, it doesn't matter what he thinks. I think Thomas Frank's position becomes untenable. I'm not sure who you get in. It's such a crazy. There's lots of toxicity towards Thomas Frank, but also you see mad things. A lot of people, that Redknapp back to the end of the season, and all that, and you just think, oh God, this is mental. But I really don't know who you get. One candidate for me would have been Michael Carrick. And of course, he's off to United, you know. So I'm not sure who would get in. And of course, you take a huge risk because you get him in, we're floundering, and you get another manager in, and it just doesn't happen immediately. The whole thing just suddenly slumps even more downwards. We have more defeats, there's more boos, it gets even more negative. At some point, a solution has to be found. But in life, it's unrealistic to always look for a messiah. Or to look for just one main cause. You just improve lots of little things. You get some fight going on. You stick to certain principles. If we'd won or got points, like if we'd not been beaten by Bournemouth, and if say we'd narrowly beaten Villa, everything would be on and up. So it's narrow margins.
Yeah.
So it's difficult but anyway. In a way, it's good Paratici's gone because I think it just felt confused to me. Two directors of football, I think they're at pains to, it seems he's not leaving under a cloud. Hopefully he'll go out and make a bang as he goes out. And he says it's for personal reasons. Johnny seems to have a good handle on that, so that's probably a big part of it as well. I mean, where would you rather live, Reignited, Britain or Florence? Let me stroke my chin and think. Actually, probably Britain, but whatever,
Well, listen, we'll have to see, John. Again, it's interesting to see obviously how this is going to play out because I think even with regards to Langer's job, and I might be speaking out of turn here, I'm not even sure how safe his position is long term because, again, for someone that, I think would have been behind the Thomas Frank appointment, if, again, the Frank appointment doesn't work out long term, then we'll have to see. But look, we're going to focus back on the window. And there has been suggestions, Ash, to bring you back in. Spurs are set to reignite their interest in what has been a target for Spurs in the last couple of transfer windows. And that, of course, is Monaco star Akliouche as they close in on the sign, of course, at the same time, Tottenham, of Conor Gallagher and Sousa. Now, the player has predominantly played from the right wing for Monaco this season, but his versatility has been highlighted by the fact he's also capable of playing more central attacking areas in that midfield role. A tall forward, 1 goal in 5 caps for France, technically gifted player. I mean, Ash, I know you raved about him in the summer. realistically, Ash, is this the kind of profile of player you think Tottenham would need in addition to a Conor Gallagher when you look at our midfield right now and the lack of options we've got there due to injury and profiles? Does this suit us right now, Ash, to look at this player for you?
Yeah, I think with Akliouche, he provides a slightly different profile. Coming off the right wing, as you said, can play in the attacking midfielder role, which is more important on the right-hand side. I think the difference between someone like him and what we have already is that his agility and mobility, his balance, his close control, but he's got a style of playing where he has his head up. So he's able to pick out passes at speed, which can unlock defenses. And he plays very well with centre forward that likes to drop in a lot. So we saw it against us when we played them. Their centre forward would sometimes drop in, he would run in behind. He really knows where space is, so he can run in behind, but then he can also evade into space as well. He can pick up pockets in between the centre half and the right back, or he can drift into the midfield. And when we were playing him, it was very hard to pick up because you thought he was going to be on the right wing, but he was just drifting off, and he was able to pick through balls or hit passes first time with excellent weight as well. And he had a very varied of different types of passes, like chip passes, loft balls, first time passes. And that's something that can unlock low blocks. And I think that will be the difference to maybe someone like a Conor Gallagher. I think Conor Gallagher is more of a box crasher, someone that arrives late, and he's more of an instinctive finisher as opposed to someone that's going to get the ball and find someone running in on goal. Whereas I think Akliouche has that. So the complements, they would complement each other in different ways, even though Akliouche isn't a deep line play midfielder. He's more of a, as we said before, an attacking midfielder, right winger. But essentially, he's going to have something different in terms of his technical ability. And as I said before, with Conor Gallagher, when we're playing teams that want to play against us, Conor Gallagher's a lot more useful because he's a lot more of a transitional player. He likes chaos. He's really good at intense pressing. So he doesn't just jog to press, he sprints to press to win the ball back. Whereas when you're playing against maybe like your Burnleys, or you're playing against maybe Fulham that they want to sit back a little bit, you might need a technician, you might need a playmaker that's slightly different to some of the wingers we have at the moment. Hotspur is not really a technician that he can unlock defenses like that, where we are deploying him off the right to tuck in alongside Xavi at times, which I did see against Villa. But again, the skill set's slightly different. And now we've lost Kudus. Kudus is different because Kudus is more of a traditional winger where he's explosive, he's physical, low center of gravity, goes on the outside. Akliouche will drift in on the inside. So that's the difference in comparison. Also, Akliouche likes to get into the box quite a lot. And one thing I would say about his ability to shoot, he needs to work on that a bit more because his IQ, in my opinion, he needs to learn when to use power for finishing and when to use finesse, meaning placement. That first time side foot instep shot. A lot of the time he goes for the valve shot when not needed, but he does have a varied of finishing from what I've seen in the clips I've seen. Half volleys, chips, dinks, placement shots. He's got a varied style of shots going around the keeper. And he's not explosive, as I said before, but he can run in behind. He has been deployed as a striker before and off the left wing, but the main positions are attacking midfield and the right wing. But the only other thing I would say, weakness-wise, if I was going to say pull back from my own point, just to be a bit balanced, is he is quite one-footed, meaning that his stronger foot is left foot. He needs to work on his right foot, and that makes him a little bit predictable at times because people know he wants to come inside, and that's why I'd say he's more of a inverted winger in that sense. But definitely a profile that would excite the fans because he shows there's a lot of flair. So first time passes, flicks, drop of the shoulder, foot rolls, chops, Cruyff turns, you name it. He's got that in his locker. And that's what I mean in terms of like Conor Gallagher. He's more of an instinctive player, likes the game in front of him. Whereas I think you've got more of a, I don't know, footballer in Akliouche, if that makes sense. It's two different styles.
Yep. On that point, Johnny, to bring you in, He's had 19 goals and 22 assists in 119 games for Monaco. Obviously, from an outlook on that, what is it, average of a goal maybe every 4 or 5 games? It's not amazingly impressive. It's not really standout. But from what you think of the player himself, how much in terms of a profile, I asked Ashley the question, how much variety does he offer Spurs in comparison to what we've got right now? And I guess if we're ever in a position where we have got a Maddison, a Kulusevski, you can have Gallagher fit as well, is this player good enough where you feel he would still be competing for a first-team spot, or are we never going to be blessed to be in that position, do you think, anyway? What's your thoughts on the potential sign of Akliouche at Spurs apparently reignite their interest in the player?
Listen, I'm a big fan of his. I think Ash hit on a couple of points. Well, he hit on a lot of points. He absolutely nailed it. So I don't want to go over exactly the same things, but concern for me, 2 one-footed. Same with Xavi at times. I find it incredible at this day and age to say a player is so one-footed. You should be working on your game all the time and on your weaker foot non-stop, because it will make you a better player. What we're lacking in this team is a player who's able to break the lines. And as Ash eloquently said, he has all the tools at his disposal to break those lines. And I don't feel we have a single player, and that includes Xavi, who offers the flexibility of play that he has and skill set. My problem I have with him, his GA is just not good enough. For a person of his quality and his skill set, he should be delivering far more goals and far more assists. I think he's got 3 goals and 5 assists this season.
Is there an argument, John, that you come back in? Is there an argument if he's playing with better players? I mean, maybe that's marginal saying that. Would you see more
I think Ash said it. I don't buy that, playing with better players. Yes, of course, but you're in front of goal, right? Doesn't matter who you're playing. If you're there, you should be putting the ball in the net. I think he had a call up for the French squad earlier this year. Look, I'm a big fan of his, and I think what Spurs have missed for a long, long time is that creative midfielder. I mean, we haven't really replaced Christian Eriksen for such a long time, and when he left, we didn't buy anyone. And what happened? We had Harry Kane, who decided not only was he going to be our striker, he was going to drop deep and spray a ball 25 yards and be our creative midfielder as well as our striker. And I feel that we have been missing that, the ability to break the lines, that moment when someone's coming at you like a Fulham or a Burnley with that low block. He's the guy. Akliouche is the type of guy who I feel can break those lines. He's coming up, I think, 24 years of age. Listen, he's not in his prime, but he's got a lot of work to do to take himself to another level. Would I buy him? 100% I would buy him, because I think he offers us elements that we don't have right now. And I'm not for having one player. I look at Arsenal and people say, oh, where's Eze going to play? They've got Martinelli, they've got Noni, they've got Odegaard. It doesn't matter, right? It doesn't matter. I'll tell you what Eze's doing right now whilst he's sat on the bench. He knows if he gets his moment, if he gets his chance, he has to grab it. Yep. He has that one chance. Right now, you've got players that are playing for our team. There is no pressure. There is no pressure on Akliouche or some of these players. And so therefore, I believe that Akliouche needs to up his game. I mean, whilst we're talking about players that we're signing and how they can improve the team, I think some of the players who we have signed can improve their performance for our team. And he, I would flag, is one of them. But I think it would be a really good signing should we buy him. Listen, we've had enough looks at him. Okay, let's hope we're not interested FC again, and we end up not buying him. Because let's be honest, guys, before I go off on too much of a rant, we're not at the first sitting anymore. Okay, we've fallen off that level since 2019.
Yeah.
We are now looking at players who aspire to be top players, and we have to catch them in their middle ground and make them the top players who we would want in the future. That's the way I look at it.
Yeah, just to bring him back in jar if I can. Quite interestingly, apparently before Spurs were going to type the deal for Conor Gallagher, they were apparently looking at Curtis Jones, which is an interesting one because Arne Slot described him as the complete midfielder. He has become a key member of the Premier League champions last season, and he's had a tough start, like all Liverpool players have this season. What do you think, John? I mean, that kind of caliber of profile, like a Curtis Jones, and you look at Spurs at the moment, John. Again, I know you go to as many games as you can, being a home season to get older. Do you think we still need to add more in that midfield? You said earlier for you'd love to see 3-4 players come in, but with Gallagher, what do you feel we need in addition to him in terms of midfield? What complements him, do you think, in terms of profile of player?
Not only have we been missing although Maddison, to be fair, is a good number 10.
Of course,
fair. It's just he's had the injuries, but in the modern game, with the amount of games they're playing, you need 2 players for every position. And sometimes it's just a case of it's down to the recruiters to judge who would be good, whether it's this boy from Monaco. You look at the stats, you get a feel for the player. You know, we've made some very bad choices in the past, but where are we going to go? We can't attract the elite best players. And there's not that many elite players around, I don't think, nowadays. How many incredible number 9s are there? You could probably count them on the fingers of one hand in Europe and have fingers over. You know, Harry Kane, Lewandowski, I suppose. There's not many really. Isaac has fallen away. He's got injured, hasn't he? In Liverpool now, that Van der Ven tackle. But you need a full squad. One of the things that worries me, not only breaking the lines and forward passing and clever football and passes around the corner and people rotating and picking positions between the lines, is we've been that poor lately. I miss Sissoko. I miss somebody who can get up the pitch, run with the ball. Seriously, I was looking at that Villa, that Anana against.
It's a great player. Really good player.
Against Arsenal, striding up the pitch, and Sissoko, of course he couldn't keep his shot down under the bar, but he'd get up the pitch. So you need more quality in. We have to do what Leicester used to do, and shop with the French league, and go on the stats. I would think there's hopefully a lot more work on the stat side of things going on in the background now with Langer and Frank, and that you develop a team, and from that you start to develop something. But this guy, poor old Frank, he's not even had one window yet, and everyone's screaming at him, And I know what people, my friends who are fed up with him, say he's got to do, even with the players he's got who are not that good, he should be doing better. I don't quite agree with that at all. I think they've been that poor. I think psychologically as well, they're very sort of brittle. And so there's a lot of work to be done there, and that takes time. And you have to find a solution from within the group sometimes. You just do the hard work on the training ground, and it slowly comes right.
Yep.
You can't keep changing things. It's insane. It's absolutely mad. And this guy, I mean, all these football coaches, they've all got the same badges. They all aspire, they get the U8 badge, don't they? They'll know the game, all these coaches you meet. So what's the difference, And he's obviously very thoughtful, Frank. I totally accept it's possible that Tottenham's just too much of a big basket case club to manage. It's possible, But you have to, I can't help but be positive. And even if Min-hyeok are thinking that, he's going to calmly get on with it. And that if you said to him, why aren't you communicating, like Romero had a dig at them, I'd like to think Min-hyeok's answer would be, what's the point? Whatever I say, I'm going to get criticised. We'll quietly go, rather than waste time putting out press releases, we'll quietly go about our business, And the thing with Romero, which it's an easy thing to get the fans behind you when you come out with stuff like that. But to be honest, I'm a big Romero fan, but sometimes when he's not in the team, I feel kind of relieved, Danso's come in and quietly gone about his business. I always feel with Romero, it's just a little bit unprofessional. He goes tearing upfield sometimes. He's always got a bit of a red card in him. Do you know what I mean? So, so it's quite easy to come out with stuff like that and play to the gallery a little bit and showboat a bit. But all in all, with this, I'm excited. I hope we get this Moroccan guy in. If they've got any sense, and maybe they're developing some sense now, they'll have 2 or 3 other targets lined up. I wonder why teams don't look in the Championship more, or First Division even.
That's a good point. Dele Alli was one of those, isn't it? That's right, spot on. Dele Alli was one of those. Yep.
All you've got to do is look at that Hayden Hackney at Middlesbrough. Yeah. All you've got to do is I watch quite a bit of Championship football, and there's some very good players there. And it's sometimes I think it's an easier step up from the Championship than the Premier League, than the French League or the Italian League. That intensity's there. So maybe look there. The Hayden Hackney could be somebody, a guy that can play deeper.
Yeah, it's a very interesting point you make there, John. Again, it goes back to that point that in the past Spurs have had, again, you'd say relative success or certainly decent success at points where they have dipped in to the Championship and League One. Obviously, Dele Alli a prime example to that. One player actually it looks like Spurs aren't going to be signing as things stand during this January transfer window is Yan Diomande. Fabrizio Romano has said Tottenham tried to sign him this January, but it's not possible. The message from Leipzig is that Diomande will not leave the club this winter. The summer could be a different story with United, PSG, Bayern Munich all sending scouts to watch him. The 19-year-old has been flying in the Bundesliga and has attracted interest from several major European clubs. He secured his first professional contract back in January of 2025. Has impressed so much at Legans that Leipzig have quickly snapped him up. He did come out recently to say on TikTok that I want to play at Anfield, I want to play for Liverpool, and I'm a big fan of that football club. Does it at least show Ash, I guess, again, it's frustrating that he won't be a Spurs player, but does it give you confidence, though, that we're looking at the right profile of players, Ash? Or again, would you see that potential player as, again, one for the future, Ash?
No, yeah, it just gives me confidence that we're trying to buy not just the next best thing, but we're willing to spend big on the right player in that right position. It was quoted around, 75 million to 100 million euros I was hearing for this particular player. So if they're willing to pay that amount of money, you might as well just get Rafael Leao. No, I'm joking now. But the point is, all seriousness, I think, if we go out and we're looking to, because look, Savinho was, we're going to spend 70 to 75 million for him. So, it means that we've got that money, first of all, and we are looking to buy a proven player that's ready to go right now. One player could be, as you guys said already, work in progress. The other one has to be ready to go right now. So, and I think one side's more creative and the other side is more of a goal threat, in my opinion, meaning that Son was more of a goal threat. And then the right-hand side, obviously we've got Kudos there. He's more creativity. And I think that's the remit, in my opinion. I think that's what they're looking at. So, if we're going to be serious, let's go out and let's try and get it done. And don't be afraid, if you make the mistake, to go again in the next window. Do you know what I mean? We can't be this club that sits on a recruitment that got it wrong, and then we just like, oh my days, sit on it for 5 years or 6 years and end up selling that player for free. We just go and get the next one, until we get it right, man. I think that's got to be the attitude. Too many times we've been burnt and we've let it affect our current spending or our future spending because we're not going back out there and trying to get the next best thing for that particular position. So, yeah, man, that's my personal opinion on the whole missing out on Diomande. He's a top talent. It's the reason why he's been linked with Liverpool and other top clubs like Bayern Munich as well. I know they're linked with him as well.
He only wants to go there, I think, doesn't he? He said he's only. Tell me, like Ash, just out of curiosity, because I don't feel we're in the link. We're not in the hunt for him realistically, because he's stated as such. And the fact that Lookman now looks like he's going to Fenerbahce, would you be interested in Brahim Diaz, the Moroccan boy? Because I think, for the price and what he can offer us on that left wing and his versatility to play through the middle, he would definitely elevate us. I wondered what you thought, whether he would be a player. I mean, we've been loosely linked with him. I know he's at AFCON at the moment. What do you think?
I thought it was right wing. I'm not gonna lie. I thought it was on the. I thought
he plays left wing, right wing. He plays in a variety of positions, but left wing, right wing, and through the middle.
He plays through the middle. I
Yeah.
was watching him in AFCON. It was quite, it was impressive in AFCON. He's got physicality. One thing I'll say, he's got good physicality.
100%.
He's not weak. He's quite stocky as well by build. Good player, but it's just whether because at Real Madrid he didn't hit the ground. He hasn't hit the ground running the ball. The goals aren't really there. So it's that same thing you're talking about with Akliouche in terms of output. Yes, in AFCON he's done well, but in the league, he hasn't really hit the ground running. So what can we do in that position? Can we find someone that has a bit more goal threat?
We know that Adeyemi Lookman, right? He's listen, for me, he's gone for the money, but why we're not in there for $1.5 million loan fee for a guy that he scores goals, he's assists, he's proven. And for me, he would be the answer temporarily or for now.
Lookman, I agree. Lookman was the one for me. We know he can play in the Premier League, which is always a gamble. We know he can play there. Great player.
You know what it is? I think people are very skeptical of Serie A. I don't know why. I think because you get a lot of time, and in Premiership you don't get a lot of time. Don't get much time to kind of get on the ball, get your shot off, finish the goal. Do you know what I mean? So maybe that's the reason why. And also with Lookman, he was at Charlton, he was at Everton, he was at Leicester, and the stints he had there in the Premier League, he wasn't really good. Then all of a sudden he's gone to Atalanta and he's just gone through the roof. And then the same with other players like McTominay, he's gone there, he shot off. There's other players that have gone to Serie A, they've gone there, and you're thinking maybe that's their level. I think that's the only caveat I could think. But I would take Lookman all day. For me, it just makes sense. He looks like, to me, a Kudos with goals.
Whenever I saw him play, he always played well.
Mate, look, he's got the physicality, he's direct, he's brave, right? He scores goals, he assists, he plays out on the left, he plays through the middle. He offers, for me, he offers everything that we need right here, right now. Oven ready, come in. Yes, he didn't hit the ground in the Premier League, but you're talking about how young he was at the time when he was coming through. He was playing there as a kid, as a teenager. All right, let's have some context to it. I don't want to be signing any makeshift player that is like half-cocked, right? It's got to be, we got to go all in. I'd rather sign 2 players that I know 100% will deliver something to this football team than sign 4 players who are, one's okay and like 3 also runs. Waste of time. We should be having a level. And unless they reach that level, we don't purchase them. It's as simple as that. I'm done with half-cooked, half-baked players.
I totally agree on that. Look, we'll do one more round the table. I'm going to close with Johnny on the links to... we'll close with Ashton and Johnny on the links to Adeyemi and to Garcia. Jar's out and about. He's out and about. So I want to quickly ask Jar before he has to go. Jar.
Oh, he's gone.
I tried
on the run.
That guy, Jar literally makes his own rules up as he goes. He's one of those great
Too
guys.
cool for school. Too cool for school. Andy Garcia for me at Leverkusen would be my number 1 choice as midfielder. Would have been. What about you? Yeah.
What's that, midfielder?
Garcia.
Yeah, Garcia's top player. I like him, man. He's a dictator. He's got the tempo setter. Like, he's got it all, man. He's got a range of passing that would help. That progressive pass that all fans are looking for. Yeah, great player.
Yeah, he would go perfectly with Conor Gallagher for me.
Mm-hmm. Yeah,
it's interesting that they're still suggesting that Spurs are in the market for a progressive pass if they can find the right option. I don't know if you guys have any knowledge on these players. Alexis Garcia's one. Hayden Hackney's another that Jar mentioned earlier. Those kind of players, guys, is that what you feel Tottenham need in this particular window? Can you see them being realistic targets between now and the end of the window, guys? What do you reckon? Johnny?
Yeah, look, I like Hayden Hackney, but I've got questions about him. You know, everyone's looked at him, and 22 coming up 23, he's still at Middlesbrough. He hasn't, been a Walton or an Anderson where someone's made the big jump. He's a little bit too slow for me. Garcia all day long for me. He has all the tools for me to go forward. I like Hayden Hackney. But no, if I had to make a choice, there's only one I would be going for, and that's Garcia by Leverkusen.
Okay, I'm going to go to Ash if I can. Ash, one player Spurs have been linked with towards the end of this. Well, I say towards the end of the day. This is what came out in the last few hours or so. Is a player by the name of Karim Adeyemi. As Spurs look at potential other attacking options. He's a youngster who can play on the left or the right wing or as a striker. He's notched 32 goals in 22 assists and 130 appearances for Dortmund so far. His current contract expires in 2027. Although there has been suggestions around his attitude and misdemeanors. Do you know anything about that, or this is the player that you feel Tottenham should be taking a punt on? What do you think, Ash?
So apparently, like his girlfriend, she wants to come over to London. She's a model looking for work, and
why is there always a backstory to these kind of players?
Kind of push through the move. That's what I'm hearing on the grapevine. But I remember him in the final when he was playing under Terzic, and he had that chance he could have put away. He's rapid. It's just clinical. If he was more clinical, he would be amazing. I think he was a kid prodigy. I think he was in Bayern Munich Academy. A lot of hype was spoken about him. He's still very young as well. Maybe that's why he's so reckless. Maybe he needs a right coach, right manager, right guidance to kind of
or a right hook.
Yeah, but it's a difficult one, man, because a lot of people are calling him Werner 2.0 because he's so quick. But again, it's just, can he find that corner? Can he find that that killer instinct inside the box? But I would say the potential, the ceiling is there, in my opinion. I wouldn't be mad at it. A lot of people are against it, but I personally think he's got room to grow. But again, I go back to my point. It's just the IQ in terms of finishing that for me needs to be worked on. And I looked at him, I compared him to Kevin Schade, that people aren't happy about him. Kevin Schade's got better output at the moment, and they play a similar position. And I think Kevin Schade's getting ahead of him in the German league, in the German team, sorry. So make of that what you may.
He's twerking for Arsenal, Ash Adeyemi. Whether or not that's going to work, I'm not so sure.
Yeah,
he's got a hard on for Arsenal. So like so many players, but you get it wrong sometimes, guys. You get it wrong sometimes, and you end up as Spurs.
Okay, well, I want to close on Conor Gallagher and also close on how big the West Ham game is. I know, Jar, look, again, we've not had anyone here for a while, and I've asked you about Thomas Frank, and you feel for you that obviously whilst, he's been responsible for an element of the way Spurs are playing, you feel the squad aren't anywhere near good enough. Will you feel confident, Jar, with Gallagher over the line, with Sousa and potentially one or two more? Realistically, what's the best Thomas Frank can hope for come the end of the season, given what he's got to work with, and realistically, what would keep him in a job? Because I will reiterate the fact that what's being put out there from a PR perspective is that Frank played quite a big role in bringing Gallagher to the club. And that will maybe underline the insistence from the Spurs insiders that at this moment in time, Frank does still have the faith of the Lewis family and Vinay Venkatesham. But you said it earlier, if he loses to West Ham, the mood in that stadium is going to be very, very toxic. And you just wonder how many more games he can continue with the results, not just at home, but in general, not being anywhere near the level. So what do you think, Jar? How big a week is this for Thomas Frank, do you think?
Well, the players have to take on board, we can't lose this bloody game. Right? You start, there's the trouble with Tottenham, so often players, people don't take responsibility. Not big-hearted. It doesn't act like a big club, a winning club at times, So it does seem, reading between the lines, that they're backing Frank and that it's a project, and they know projects sometimes get off to bumpy starts, as Arteta did. Do you remember the flack Arteta was getting? He was hated by a large body of the Arsenal fans. Despised. They absolutely hated him, and I think they're quite right, quite frankly. But no, they hated him, you know. And with Frank, you can overcome this. You know, the mass of people will just change. You know, you win and you put a few performances under your belt, but they really need fresh blood. That's for sure. Even before Bentancur got injured, we needed somebody like Gallagher to come in. You know, so I'm hopeful. We need another number 10 type player. You know, for sure. There's talk of another defender. I suppose that's why they let Dragushin go, you know.
Essentially, Roma is still apparently keen to sign Dragushin, but Spurs at the moment are insistent Dragushin isn't going to leave, despite the fact that his agent, as we've said, has been yapping earlier, saying that his heart is set on a move to Roma. But as things stand, Tottenham
I believe the agent said he is a gladiator, and gladiators belong in Rome. You know, which is like, it's like, mate, you should be a Hollywood script writer, let alone an agent. Do you know what I mean? You know, it's like Russell Crowe movies or something. But I'm you know, I can't today. It's pathetic. I'll probably change my mind, but I'm quite hopeful. I think the Gallagher thing's exactly what we needed right now. It shows our stock has fallen. A couple of years ago, I was like, another number 8. You know, I'm not so sure, really not sure about that. But now things have fallen so badly. We just need some, you know, basic, good, tough attitude, and those players need to start getting, you know, there's nothing wrong with getting in shape, but you know, you've got to show some initiative as well in attack, and also in winning the ball back. You know, you got to get stuck in a little bit. So I'm hopeful. I would hope as well. You know, in the Champions League, let's go as far as we can. What an opportunity. You know, you know, to be in a Champions League club, you know, the way it's looking now, it'd be a long time before we get back in it. You know what I mean? So, look, I'm a nutter. I kind of think, you know, movies like Rocky or Against All Odds. Imagine us winning the Champions League. Remember when Greece won was it Denmark and Greece when they won? You know what I mean? That's football. It can happen. You know. I probably need certifying. Well, nutted off, as we used to say in the East End, and it'd be nutted off every fault. But you know, go and try and win it. And let's try. Every game's a cup final now from now on. Apart from that, and we get up the league and get into the top 6. I'd be delighted if we managed to nick a top 6 place and get into the Europa League next year. You know, and if we got to the quarterfinals, even go on and win the Champions League. If you have. So much is about belief and confidence in football.
Of course.
And obviously, it's hard to engender confidence in these players. You can imagine Tell going off and being a big success somewhere else, you know, because how would you like, you know, it must be terrifying to go out. You know, there's such a moany crowd, you know, moany crowd who don't, you know, I remember they used to boo Venables. You know, it's Tottenham. It's one of the bad sides about Tottenham. You know, they're very. I remember I was up in the shelf. There was one season in the nights we had Klinsmann. I ended up getting a season ticket in the West Stand. And I remember I've never known such moany old sods as in that West Stand. Because nothing as good as, you know, Cliff Jones or, you know, Jimmy Greaves, any of the double side. You know, this ridiculous sense of entitlement. And sometimes with Tottenham, it needs some humility. When you go, you know, and I go to a lot of matches in the north of England and all that. I've got a lot of northern friends, and the attitude in the north and northwest especially, there's a sort of grounded humility, you know, a work ethic there. Do you know what I mean? And a real support for the club, you know, through thick and thin somehow. You know, at Tottenham, the whole thing needs to be gelled together. It's difficult, of course, in this corporate age because, you know, the proper old fans, you know, especially older sort of mobs such as myself, you know, we don't gel with the likes of the corporate kind of mob that are running it now, you know. But I still have a great love for Tottenham. Obviously, I'm a season ticket holder and a great belief that one day, for me, we should be the greatest club in the world. You know, Cockerell, the style of the club. We invented the passing game, to be fair, you know, back in the 50s, proper modern passing game with that guy that went off to Holland with No, but there was a guy that worked with Rowe who went and influenced. So Arthur Rowe with a push and run team, and there was another guy, Buckhurst or something. He was a Tottenham guy. He went off to Holland, and he was a big influence on Ajax and Cruyff and Total Football. Forgot his name. Spurs historians, when I'm talking, something Buckhurst or something. The guy, forgotten his name, but it's a Tottenham guy out of the Arthur Rowe school. Yeah, you know. So we took that mantle from Preston back in the early days of the 20th century. That's why we had to play with the white shirts, I believe, and they had very good Scottish players who could keep the ball on the deck, you know, and all that. So, you know, I love the club, and I think you've got to have that fierce belief, and somehow you can, you know, with politics, you need charisma. You know, you need some charismatic leader in there. You know, something, you know, from within the situation. And I think Frank, he's a good psychologist. It's all a bit basic football, you know, mission statements and all that. He's not a stupid guy, and you need to engender something. You know, and then you attract those players with a charisma, like a Dave McKay, people like that. You know.
Yeah. I agree. Listen, we'll have to see. It's a big week for Spurs. I want to close with Johnny. I'm just going to Ash very quickly. Ash, if you don't mind, lovely to have you back on the show. Look, interesting week coming up for Spurs. Gallagher, it will be the first big signing of the post-Daniel Levy era. He'll make his debut, most likely against West Ham United at the weekend. Does it feel, Ash, an El Sakiko weekend potentially? Nuno come up against Thomas Frank, and how unique in a way, you've got to say that obviously Nuno, when you look at the reverse roles and the fact that how he lost his job in the scenes that he did in that El Sakiko against, obviously, Ole Gunnar Solskjaer all those years ago, is it far-fetched to say, Ash, that a defeat for Frank against West Ham, would that be the final now in the coffin, do you think?
I said it on your shows before. I said, if he loses against West Ham, in my opinion, that's the one game you can't lose. On
the back of what's happened.
On the back of what's happened, but not only just that, West Ham are really bad. Like, a lot of people are tipping them to get relegated. So much so that one of our old gaffers, in Harry Redknapp, likes to pull up in a Range Rover on the last day of the January transfer window, said he would take over West Ham for free. He said, I'll go and do it. Like, that's how much disarray they're in. So, in my mind, they're missing Paqueta as well. He's trying to get back to Joko Bonito in Brazil. He wants to do the chat. You know what I'm saying? So, like, they're missing one of their best players, basically. And I'm thinking, we can't beat a weak in West Ham. We took in one of their best players in Kudos as well. I know he's not fit for the game, but we've got a lot more strength and depth, irrespective of our injuries. I think their main threat is Somerville, from what I can see. But Bowen, of course. But apart from that,
Somerville and Bowen, the one on the left, one on the right.
Somerville, Bowen, that combination. But like, apart from that, we're at home. And I know it doesn't speak volumes because our home form's being like is poor, but still, they're like terrible. We must, and if we don't win that, it's
I must admit, everything I've said about Frank becomes academic if you do.
100%. You know how football goes. You know how it is. Yeah. It's literally that. The statistics are damning already. So I don't.
Yeah, and I guess what they do then is they try and keep continuity. They stick with the project, but they just get someone else, you know, to come in.
Yeah, 100%.
Balance up the short term. I wonder who that would be. You know, any ideas, Ash? Who would that be?
No, maybe Robbie Keane. I don't know. Listen, you know the players though. The players will come back. They're gonna be fighting each other. You know, Paulinho, Van der Ven's already kicking out as it is. He's meant to be one of the leaders. It's just gonna kick off, and then the fans will fight in the stat. Like, Talk Sport will be number one. Ricky will probably have to do an interview on Sky Sports. Like, it'll be crazy. Like, you know how his club is already, bro. So, yeah, I think it's a must-win in my opinion.
Ash, you're a star. Johnny, we'll close with you, mate. Lovely to have you back on the show, and I know we'll be driving Johnny mad also, and all the guys between now and in the window, mate. Johnny, you know, I was like you, a big, you know, hopeful fan that Frank would be the right man for Spurs. But I think even though I know you and me have had these conversations off there as well, that realistically this weekend, just how big a game is it for Frank? And again, having Conor Gallagher in that squad, how much of a lift will that give his teammates, Frank in general, and the supporters? Is it a big enough lift to hopefully see a win? Or do you fear West Ham coming? Because they desperately need a result. And look, they have come off the back of a 2-1 win themselves in the cup. Look, let's not dress it up. They were very lucky in that win against QPR. They were hardly brilliant, but it was a win. So, I mean, looking at Saturday and the magnitude of the game, what are you expecting?
Well, my message says, like, you carry on like it's life or death, the game on Saturday. I said, no, it's a lot more than that. Look, we can't afford to lose the game. He's toast, he's cooked, he's done. Interesting, they've just signed Tati, who I thought from Argentina, I thought might look like a potato. But he looked nothing like a potato, and of course scores. Dr. Tottenham. No doubt Tati will score a goal on the weekend. But look, there can be no excuses. Nuno is desperate, trying to keep his job. Yep. If he was going to get one over anybody, it would be lovely to get one over us. It's shit or bust. There can be no excuses. We have to beat West Ham. I know, I was at the London Stadium with my telescope trying to watch the game from the stand. We wiped them off. They were terrible. Bearing in mind that we did have, quite a few more players playing in that game. No excuses. We have to go and win this. Kolo Muani needs to show up. We've got Solanke, forget it. He's got 15, 20 minutes most. Richie's legs fallen off. Kudos is tight. I mean, it's just so many injuries. It's ridiculous. But there can be no excuses. It's win or it's a taxi, I'm afraid. And I don't want to hear any fan talk about Ange coming back to manage us for the end of the season. I don't want to hear Ryan Mason coming back to manage us for the end of the season.
I know we've got to end the show, Johnny, but what in the event, again, I don't want to tempt fate. If Spurs were to lose the game, what do you think they will do? Because you've said it there, it's unthinkable that Spurs would lose against West Ham, given the nature of where West Ham are in the league and Spurs. But in the event Spurs were to lose the game, who do they turn to? What do they do realistically, given that, as we've said many times, there is no obvious interim out there. There is nobody really waiting in the wings. What would they do if they were to lose to West Ham and it was to become a very toxic atmosphere? What can you see them doing?
I mean, honestly, I think Ash's shout 8 million miles off the mark. If Michael Carrick can go back, having had a career as a manager at Middlesbrough and what have you.
Yep.
Why can't Robbie Keane come in?
But on Robbie Keane, very quickly,
for 6 months
to
the end of the season.
Could you see Robbie Keane giving up the Ferencváros job in terms of long term to just come to Spurs?
No,
for 3 to 4 months?
I mean, I would just, I'm saying, that would be the ilk.
Yeah, I get it. But
Jermaine Defoe is doing his badges, but he's nowhere near. Yeah. But he understands the club, but I don't think he's anywhere near the situation where he could come in and manage the club. He might tell
maybe. Justin.
Justin Cochrane.
Cochrane, yeah, maybe. Maybe he knows the club. That ain't a bad shout, Ash.
He's been so loyal to Frank as his number 2. Could you imagine him?
Look at him looking at the iPad, mate. I know he's better than that. He's lauded in England circles as being a top coach, and why not throw him into the fire pit? It can't be worse. I know we've got to close this show, but
what worried me most about that Aston Villa game was the fact that when he was showing Danso the tactics board, Danso looked like he was trying to move about where he wanted to be, and Frank was moving it back. I mean, have you ever seen anything like that, Johnny?
Listen, it was like I thought he was playing checkers. Like, no, leave the fucking pieces where they are. This is where you got to be, man. Stop moving them about.
Have you ever seen anything like that?
I spent hours putting these mouths. Spent hours working this out. No. Listen,
I think they're in a real quandary as to what to do, though. Back to that point we're saying here, we're all coming up with different names and numbers and what they will do. I think they are really unsure what they would do. If Frank was to lose to West Ham in the stadium atmosphere, I honestly don't know what they're going to do. I think Robbie Keane will be great short term. Don't think he's going to walk away from the Ferencváros job for the sake of coming to take the job for 3-4 months. I already know what they're going to do.
I think there are probably a couple of candidates out there that we're thinking
Klinsmann?
I think I think I'd love the AI, some of the AI stuff that's been doing the rounds the last sort of 4 or 5 days. You know, Xavi at lunch and dinner with Vinay and Paratici. No doubt there'll be one with Xavi Alonso in tomorrow. Forget Xavi Alonso, mate. If he's going anywhere, he's going to Liverpool. But listen, look, let's hope we're not in that. Look, I'll be honest with you. I hope that Thomas Frank turns it around and we're having this conversation in the summer and we're saying, you know what, the guy might have something. It might not be, but I think we need to roll the dice until the summer, personally, and see what's available in the summer when Tommy Tuchel, Nagelsmann, Pochettino and the likes will all be available. That's not to say they'll be interested in the job, but for the right money, they would come.
Yeah, listen, we await to see what the soap drama of Spurs does bring us. Johnny, thank you so much. Of course, Football Link's very own Spurs 5's very own Ash. Thank you over at Spurs Kings. Thanks to the musician Jar Wobble. They don't know it yet, but we will have a deadline day live in store where all these beautiful faces will be coming your way. But they'll be driven mad, I'm sure, between now and the end of the month as well. Guys, thanks to the over 8,500 that have been watching us live across all the platforms. We really appreciate it. Conor Gallagher is one step closer to being a Spurs player. Sousa is to follow. We want more. We need more. Will that be Akliouche? Will that be Garcia or Adeyemi? We'll see. But from us all, thanks for your support as always. Keep safe, keep well. And as always,